Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Love of Business at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. My name is Guy Dawson, and I am your host. And The Love of Business is all about showing people who are in business and displaying the love that they have for the career that they've chosen. And we have an excellent guest today who exemplifies what that's all about. His name is Davin Sundvick, and he is with Sundvick Real Estate. He is got an incredibly interesting story of how he came to be involved in the fast-paced world of real estate. Welcome, Davin.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on your show, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I've known Davin for several years, and one of the things that impressed me right off the bat was his passion at his age. He's a younger guy who is very, very committed to what he's doing. And I'm always impressed with young people who've kind of already figured out their trajectory in life. I think that some people they find what they're good at and they start pursuing it. And it really gives them I think an upper hand on a lot of us, although we're all on our own journey figuring out what we want to do when we grow up. But Davin, he struck me right off the bat as someone who really had figured out what he's going to do when he grows up at a young age. And would you say that that's accurate, Davin, that you kind of figured out what you wanted to be when you grew up very young?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm one of those people who I kind of jump in with 2 feet and then see if it works or doesn't work. And so I've done that enough times where I've jumped into real estate and then, pretty much almost never looked back.
What got you into real estate?
Originally, it was when I was going to go off to college. My parents had kind of made a deal with me to a certain degree, and they said, "Hey, look, you can either graduate college debt free, or you can graduate college with a bunch of student loans. The path for being debt free is going to take a little bit of extra work, but if you can show that you're willing to do the work, we'll help you out in it." So I go, "Well, how do we do this?" And they said, "Well, that we've owned rental properties in the past. We'd be happy for you to live in one of our rental properties if you just manage it with roommates and Airbnb and make some extra income off of it. We'll kind of give you some credit towards it, but you have to put in the work and you have to show us that you're dedicated to it." So I took about every chore I could in the house to kind of show them that I would be willing to do it. When I was in high school in my senior year, I already pre-recruited a few roommates. And so they're like, "Yeah, like, you're doing the work. Like, we know that you're going to be able to fill this not only with paying tenants, but also, make sure that the house stays clean and that the asset doesn't like completely get destroyed by a couple of bachelors living in, all by themselves up in Reno." So that's how I got started. And then once I was doing it, I watched a bunch of real estate podcasts because I watched their value, the assets value go up in value. And I was like, okay, well, not only are they getting the rental income, but they're also getting the appreciation from it too. So I should understand a little bit more about this. And so I got into Bigger Pockets podcast. I used to watch a guy called Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan, a lot of those guys in real estate. And after a couple of years, I actually started teaching other people how to do it. When I saw the checks that real estate agents made, and I was like, dang, I did all the work. I taught a buyer how to do this. Like, I literally referred it to the agent. It was like a layup. All I had to do was make, just a quick sale. And I was like, I can do this. I'm already pretty much doing 90% of the work. And so that's how I got started in my career.
It's great to hear, Davin. You are a part of this internet generation where your education comes from podcasts. It's a completely different world. When I was a younger man like you, our education was we attended live seminars, we had tapes and things like that we listened to for our personal and professional development. But it's interesting to hear how you use podcasting. This new technology connected you with people that were able to give you a lot of good tips, along with coming from, of course, an entrepreneurial family, which I'm sure was also helpful for you. But this new way of educating people and learning things beyond the traditional educational platform. I know you went to college, but it seems like you got a lot of education just by taking advantage of the internet and, of course, your hands-on experience as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say being hands-on was the biggest factor. And then being able to leverage the internet outside of my own college, because I'm a big reader, but when I was in college, they have like mandatory reading and things like that. So I actually kind of read less books while I was in college and watched more podcasts as a replacement. And so it gave me, like you said, the opportunity to get information that I wouldn't normally have access to. And you can try out 20 different real estate podcasts in one weekend and find which ones are probably the highest quality and stick to them. Versus when you're going to in-person seminars, it'd be pretty difficult to go to 20 in a week or even a weekend. So, yeah.
Yes, this new level of education, and as you mentioned, just the unique perspectives that you get. And
Yeah.
so you talked about the fact that you went away to college and you were already engaging in the world of real estate at a very young age. And then you left college. You left college debt free. Is that
Yep.
what ended up happening?
It did. It did. So yeah. So my parents did end up covering it since they're real estate way over. So I would almost rather have been looking back on it. I almost rather would have been debt in order to have half of that down payment instead of having the debt free. But you look back and you go, you know what? If my parents made a little bit off my hard work, it's not the end of the world. I learned way more in the lessons than I did lose out on any appreciation gain or anything like that. So, but yeah, no, it was definitely I definitely graduated debt free. It was very freeing because I went into the workforce and I was just able to work really hard and just kind of save up enough to start a business. So. Um,
And you were already doing things on the investment side, learning how to manage the properties, and I'm sure your parents were schooling you a lot on principles as well of how to be successful with real estate. And then you made the transition to actually becoming a realtor. Can you
yep.
tell us about that? What type of a transition was that?
Yeah. So when I was in the end of my junior year, or actually, no, like midway through my junior year of college, I ended up getting licensed, knowing that I'd only be able to do it part time, but literally just to have the license in case people asked more questions, and that I was able to teach people how to do it. And so I was technically a part time realtor for a while, even though I was used to entrepreneurship because I've always been a math tutor. It was kind of like my high school job that turned into my college job, and then that fizzled out when I got licensed as a realtor a little bit later on. But so I've been licensed for a while, and then when I graduated, to get momentum in a real estate career takes quite a bit. There's different strategies for it. Some people they work a full-time job and build their business in the evening. Some people just go right into it. I didn't have those level of funds on hand, even though I was debt free. I had bills to pay. I had all kinds of responsibilities, obligations, and I said, you know what, it'll be better just to kind of save up a bunch at a time and build this business on the side. And so that's what I did. I mainly focused on my education and my network. And then it was after about 7 months after I graduated is when I said, that's where I'm going full time into it. So that's kind of like how it started. But yeah, it was that part of it was gradual until I quit my job. So yeah.
And that really does step the game up, Davin, when you get to
Yeah.
the point where you decide, okay, I've got the security of a job, and now I'm going to make being a realtor my full-time job. What was that
Yeah.
like for you when you made that big leap?
So I took the job as something to open up my mind because I was like, you know what, I do need the income, but at the same time, it'd be good to try working in a field that's not real estate just to kind of exercise myself a little bit and learn some new skills and things like that, and just almost see if real estate is something that I'm like missing out on if I pursue real estate and I don't make the kind of money that I want to make, am I missing out elsewhere? And after about 6 months, I found out, you know what, I don't think I'm really missing out on much because when you're 22, 23 years old, a stable salary really doesn't there's no motivation to have a stable salary. I didn't have a car payment. I had a cheap, really, really affordable car at the time, like a 20-year-old car, a Corolla that was paid off. I had roommates, so my monthly expenses weren't that big, and so I realized, you know what, like I have enough savings to just kind of do it. So there was a little bit of, I guess you could say, a little bit of fear, but really not that much incentive to stay on the path that I was on. So, I didn't have anything that I felt like I was walking away from.
And so here you are, you're a young man and you're in real estate now. I know you are on both sides of the coin. You do commercial as well as residential real estate.
Yeah.
Why did you initially start out on the residential side and then you began the commercial real estate, or did you do both at the same time? What was your path there?
Yeah. So when I was still working two jobs, when I was working as an agent, in the evenings and working a day job, I had done some commercial real estate on the side because I do genuinely enjoy entrepreneurship. And what I liked about real estate was you could essentially participate in somebody else's business for my favorite part of it, which my favorite part of it was the real estate side of it. So if someone's starting a business and they're like, hey, I want to start a restaurant, I love shopping for restaurant space. But I don't necessarily like recruiting employees or doing all that kind of stuff. So I got to participate in the part of the business that I really enjoyed. So that's what I liked about commercial, but I didn't have enough clients to do it full time. And at that time in 2018, 2019, there was still a lot of questions or unknowns about housing from my generation. So people that were under 25 really didn't understand how these loan products work. We didn't have TikTok, which I'm not saying TikTok is a great educational source, but there's actually a lot more awareness about certain things because of apps like TikTok that just didn't exist back then. Um, so that's why I still did a lot of residential. Now I do residential in very specific niches usually because it's so competitive out here in Las Vegas that when people are buying their first home, they're usually going to go with a family member. But if they're going to invest into being a landlord, they're going to want somebody who has experience in that. And so because I have experience as a landlord, I'll help a lot of them there. And then on the commercial side, I still get to do exactly what I love, which is helping entrepreneurs, grow their vision and, make it happen.
So your background, what I see here, Davin, is your background, that work that you were putting in at 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old. When the time came, you got out of college and you really got involved in your career. You were ready. Do you attribute that all that preparation? I mean, you didn't start out as someone new in real estate. Even
Yeah.
at a young age, has that been an accelerator for your career?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen people in this career field, work part-time jobs and to sustain themselves until their career picks up. And it takes like years or almost, for some people they just quit, or for some people it takes 10 years and they really never figure out how to perform at a high level in this career field, or they just, they don't want to. Um, or they don't have the right expectations, and so they'll never really, get what they want out of this career field. I think it made me find my niche a lot faster because I think that's the biggest key in real estate is there's so many opportunities out there and so much competition that if you just find a niche and stick with it, you're almost guaranteed to be successful. But if you kind of focus on everything, it doesn't really work. So my niche was really the wealth building side. It was really people who um, didn't trust like the securities markets, like stocks, but they really understand the value of having a little bit of risk in their portfolio. They want something hands on. I was almost able to be not really a financial advisor, but almost like a real estate advisor. And that, once I found that niche, it took off a lot faster. Yeah. And that was about a year ago is when it really took off.
And for you, having gotten started, as you mentioned, 2018, 2019, then of course we went through 2020, which was a
Yeah.
challenge, I would imagine, hitting
Uh-huh.
COVID at the very beginning of your career. What were the adjustments that you had to make in order to be able to overcome that challenge?
Yeah. So I'd started my business the day after they had announced the pandemic. Like my business license came in like right when the shutdown happened, pretty much. And for my business, because it's an advisory business, there's no like advertisement that you can run that's really going to attract the kind of clientele that you really need. Most of it is organic. So it's either, Facebook groups where people know you and then they recommend you, or it's in-person networking. And so I had to learn how to network digitally a lot more effectively because I relied on so much face-to-face networking and just making friends. People realize, okay, this guy's legit, he's real. He's not a scammer. He actually knows how to handle wealth and money. Um, that is something that is really hard to communicate digitally because there's so many hacks out there. So I had to learn that skill. And then I also just kind of had to learn the skill of patience, where some years you're just not going to make a profit in business, and some years you are. And 2020, I made a profit on paper, but I really didn't make a profit in opportunity cost. Like if I had stayed working, I would have made more money. But I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really care. I was doing what I enjoyed doing, and I had to love that more than the loss of income.
Making the adaptions, as you mentioned, Davin, is
Yeah.
so important when you're in business, is learning how to roll with the punches of your market. And as you had mentioned, many of us had to make that adjustment. We were so
Mm-hmm.
used to, here in Vegas anyway, the in-person networking environment. And I know me personally, for years, I had talked about how I wanted to step up my online networking
Mm-hmm.
things that I was doing, but I was never doing it, not doing it, just relying on in-person networking. But the pandemic came, and like all entrepreneurs, you have to figure out adversity is the mother of invention, as they say. And
It
I can
sure is.
totally identify with you. It's a very different approach when you're networking with people online because of all the spammers and things, but the opportunities I think are even broader because of how big the internet is. Was that something that you discovered for your particular business? Was this challenge ended up being actually an opportunity for you?
Oh, absolutely. Because so many people, when they think of marketing, they think of like, how can I make money, instead of really what, really my business is, how do I make other people money? I mean, in real estate, when I'm being a real estate advisor, that's really what I'm doing. So I had to think of it like even one layer deeper, which, I used to just ask the question on LinkedIn. So I used to just not really random message people, but I'd pick an industry and I'd message people in that industry, and I would just, introduce myself and say, hey, are you open to networking? And that one question was different than everybody else who was sending, because, different people, they send either spam messages or just bulk messages. So I'm not the only person doing it, but everybody else was promoting what they do and trying to sell something. And I was the only person, or one of the few, saying, hey, you got time for a phone call? I just want to get to know your business, see if we can refer back and forth. And that made a difference.
And so here we are now. We're getting on the other side of COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, you've laid a lot of the groundwork. It sounds like to build on your business in terms of, you talked about the networking, you talked about your knowledge of the ins and outs, different aspects of real estate, being an actual realtor, investing yourself as well as managing properties, because we are in such an interesting time in terms of the real estate market where it's just been going up, 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 and
Yeah.
interest rates are climbing at the same time. How are you managing this? Small inventory,
Mm-hmm.
just conditions that I don't think anyone's ever seen before is what we're experiencing in the real estate market right now.
Yeah. We actually saw a little bit of this same market in Reno in the beginning or the end, depending on how you want to call it, of 2018.
Mm.
We just didn't see it at this scale. So you're correct. The scale in which we're seeing it is pretty extreme, but I actually saw it pretty recently. And so, like if you're asking questions on like, how do you actually make transactions work? Because it's hard to sell a business where you have no inventory. It's like selling cars when there's no cars to sell. So it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of knowing other realtors who can cooperate with each other. That made a huge difference. So when I take on a client, people know like, hey, Davin's got connections in commercial. Like if they have something for sale, Davin's going to know before I can find it on the internet, because commercial real estate is very public. You can go on loopnet.com, find any space that you'd ever want to buy. The the problem with that is that a lot of those properties, you want to try to call on them. They're not going to take a call from, a customer. They're only going to take calls from agents, or it's already pre-sold. And so they just have a stale ad that's up, versus me, who has relationships directly with the listing agents. I'll know what's coming onto the market before you can find it on the internet. And that made a difference in commercial. And then in residential, it was just kind of knowing how to negotiate and knowing what sellers want. That helps a ton, because too many buyers, they think that they have to negotiate only on price, and there's other factors that matter too.
Why do you love the business that you're in, Davin?
Oh man, why do I love the business? I think I love the opportunities because I'm such an opportunistic like person. I'm very optimistic, so I like upside potential. And I think that real estate gives a lot of people who find problems satisfying because like I love solving problems. Real estate's great for that because it's a very inefficient market, which means that um, the what's available compared to the potential is just completely not even seen. And so when you can see that a property has potential, you can make quite a bit of money off of it. But most people won't see that. And so, that's what I like about it. Yeah.
So problem solving, because there
Yeah.
are thousands and thousands of realtors out there,
Yeah.
but the person generally who ends up with the work is the one that learns how to solve problems.
Yep.
Anyone can sell a house, but when you get into or a piece of property, but when the challenges come up that you have to work through, that kind of separates people generally who are at the top of their game or tops in their fields, is their ability to be able to work through the complications that sometimes come with any type of transaction that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if people see you as a problem solver, they'll pick you out of a bunch of agents at minimum. So that it's definitely good there. But even outside of just being picked as the agent, just being able to know like even which properties to help a client identify is still a valuable skill in this market. Yeah.
And one thing I know about you, Davin, is in terms of giving back to your community, you're also someone who is very committed to that. We have an organization that we're a part of called the Calls Marketing Chamber of Commerce, and Davin has participated in several events that we've put on. Have
Hmm.
you always had a philanthropic side to you, or is this something that you've adopted? Why have you become so interested? And I can see your interest with
Yeah.
your participation in these things that we're doing. How did you get into this, wanting to not only be successful in business but also give back to your community?
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually say it probably comes from my faith. So just growing up in the church and being a Christian and reading the Bible, I'd say that's where it comes from mainly because because of the way that I think of money, right? So I think if you look at finances on a biblical level, you can't look at your bank account and say, "Oh, I've got $1,000 in my bank account," and not think that it's somebody else's money. Like at the end of the day, you weren't born with that money. Somebody had to give it to you, so it's really not even yours to have. It's really yours to give and bless others with. So, and you lose to inflation every day too. So if I can give somebody $100 today that they use to help people, in $100 worth of help, well, that magnifies over time. Versus if I put that in my savings account, it goes down in value over time. I can't buy the same amount that I can buy just by stuffing it in a savings account. So that's what I see in it. I see that um, you can leverage the resources that you have, um, and make such a bigger impact when you give it to others than if you keep it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there was one piece of advice that you could give someone who's in business or aspires to be in business to bring more love to it, what would your advice be?
Man, um, I would say to actually understand um, what a business is and like the what actually makes a business profitable because there's multiple elements to it. There's not just the revenue that you can get or just the cash flow. Because a lot of people think of a business when they first get into it, they think, well, I'm an employee, I make $60,000 a year. So how do I go run a business and replace $60,000 a year? Um, and I would say focusing on understanding that there's equity that grows into your business. There's profitability, which is not the same thing as cash flow. And there's also opportunity costs of your time too. So just people understanding that you're going to be working on your business a lot more than working in your business as an employee. So if you think that you can just show up as, be an employee, and replace your income, it's probably not going to work as well as you expect. versus if you focus on profitability and making sure that the company's sustainable over a term of like 5, 10, 20 years. That's what's actually going to make you the revenue that you want. It's not going to be replacing your own income.
Excellent suggestions, Davin, related to the vision that
Yes.
people who are successful in business have, the long-term thinking, and
Uh-huh.
how it's being someone who's in business is definitely not a quick fix. It's a
No.
long game, and you have to kind of strap yourself in. And that's
Yep.
the importance of loving what you're doing. I know we were talking about this off camera. When you love what you do, you're more able to deal with all the twists and turns that you experience being in business. Has that been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like there's definitely times in my business where something that my business needs that I didn't expect would come up. And so when you pay that expense, you can either look at your bank account and say, well, I'm going to draw a $5,000 less salary per year, or you can say, you know what? Well, my customers technically paid for it because I'll just make a little bit less profit at the end of the year, and my customers are paying for everything that I need or want in order to be able to do what I love to do. Which is really, I mean, in my opinion, that's the reason why I got into real estate, is because you can make money off of other people's money. I like the fact that in business you get to fund your career, with your customers, and obviously you have to give your customers the value in return for them to be willing to do that. But I just like the fact that, I don't have to show up to a job that somebody else provided. I can show up to a place where, I was able to create the structure that provided what I wanted to do. Yeah.
It was a pleasure to speak with you about your love of business today, Davin. How can people get in contact with you if they want information about how you can help them as a realtor or investment advice? How can people get a hold of you?
Absolutely. There's three ways that are probably the best. One is by calling me. You can call me at 702-518-1606. That is my business number that you can find on Google. So Google is our second way. So you can just Google Sundvick Realty, and you'll find me right next to Sundvick Legacy Center, which is my mom's business. And then if you want, you can go to davinsundvick.com. That's our brokerage website, and that's also listed on our Google page. So yeah, like I said, davinsundvick.com. You can actually book an appointment right there online. It'll go into my calendar automatically and find a good time for us to speak. So that is probably the best way to do it.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, Davin, and talking about your love of business. And for all of you out there, continue to tune into shows here at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. We have a lot of fantastic information that is offered by the hosts of our various shows. And we will see you very soon with another broadcast of The Love of Business. Remember to like PR Connections on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and elsewhere, and visit our website, prconnectionsradio.com. See you soon.